So boys and girls, if you have looked at my idea sheet with all the pictures of the real castles, you should be able to see that these drawings are kind of simplified versions of those castles, but it gives you a good idea of how to draw them. I like how on these you can see those little lines that they made for bricks, how they used cross-hatching and some details for texture. And these are all things that we'll be doing at the end. But at first, we need to start drawing. So you're going to start off with a piece of paper. Now, at school, I had a nice big piece of paper. You might have something smaller, or I can get that to you. But you'll notice that for this drawing of the castle, I've started in the center, and I notice that I'm not at the bottom of the paper. I've left a little bit of space. Now, you're probably having a lovely view of all the disastrous things on my desk there, but I will be zooming in a moment. Now, it looks like here that I am drawing a portcullis. The portcullis was that iron gate that would have come down in case someone was trying to storm the castle. There also would have been some doors, but for me right now, I just decided I was just going to do the portcullis alone. The next thing is that I am drawing a little bit of a ridge around the outside because I wanted to make it look like there were bricks that were used to support the architecture of the building for that doorway. So that's kind of a fun detail. The next thing that you're going to be working on is something that you right away think about whenever you're thinking about a castle, which is the drawbridge. And so we're doing two lines that kind of go out and then one along the bottom. This is something that would have been lowered when people had to come in and out, but they could just pull that thing up and cover up that whole doorway if someone tried to get into the castle. I drew a few details to make it look like wood. And now what I'm actually doing is pretending that I am attaching some hardware to the sides of the door. And I'm going to be attaching a chain from that to the corner of my drawbridge. So just in case someone naughty comes, I can just yank that thing up. I'm putting little texture on there just to kind of make it seem like chains. You can do whatever you want if you want yours to look like a rope or chain or whatever floats your boat. Now, we're about to move on to the barbican. This would have been the very front, kind of like a gatehouse. So we just extended two lines going out, and now it's like you're making a rectangle going around. But instead of a line going across, this is going to be the very first of many crenellations. Crenellations were that a way of putting along the top of a wall kind of a high point and a low point. And during any kind of battle, they would have gone into the opening part to be able to shoot an arrow, and then they would have hidden behind the taller part of the crenellation to hide. Now, I just added arrow loops. You saw that on the video. That's a thin little slit, and I'm telling you, you can never add enough arrow loops. So if you want to decorate all day long, putting on more and more arrow loops, it always looks awesome. And some of you may have noticed that they make them sometimes look like crosses too. That's kind of fun. So we now have this much finished. And let's see what we're going to be doing next. Aha. This is actually the castle that I used for inspiration for this particular drawing that you're joining with me today. So this particular castle is very symmetrical, same on both sides, and it has two large, what we call flanking towers. These would have been large towers on either side of the barbican. And that would be great so that someone could be up there just a little bit higher to be looking to see if anyone's coming. We're going to be drawing crenellations on there. And right away, everyone starts to have a little bit of anxiety around this part because some people on their paper will end up having lots and lots of space on the sides and on the top. And some people are like, oh my goodness, I have no space on the sides. So whatever your situation is, you're going to start to see kind of the flavor of how this goes. that you have a wall and then you have a tower. So if you have space for lots of walls and towers, you can keep going until you reach the end of your paper. If you don't, if you run out of space already, who cares? Sounds great. You are done and you're going to be able to move on to the next parts. Now, because I did that over there on the right, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to do the same thing over on the left as well. So, you can catch up. I'm now doing my wall over here to the left. And it looks like I'm already getting going on my tower over there. There are many, many, many different types of windows. You could even look at the idea sheets that I posted to be able to see some of the different windows that they had. This one, I kind of am doing the same thing that we did on the doorway, where I have just the illusion of there being a row of bricks above each window. And these windows would have been something, I mean, you can't imagine that the castle was under siege all the time. There were many, many, many peaceful days in the castle where you would want a window like this to be able to look outside and to look at the beautiful animals and pastures outside. There were no princes coming in a flurry of fairy dust and princesses throwing out 30 feet of hair down to the prince. That is a thing of fairy tales. But you can sort of imagine someone hanging out that window there. So I have now put in my windows, and I'm now kind of pretending that there's a path, because on this particular castle, there was a moat going right up to the edge. And there was actually kind of like bushes and grasses kind of growing right along the edge of where the wall kind of came down. But then on the rest of it, there was a moat. So what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of drawing the shape of some little bushes that are kind of coming up higher and lower. And I'm actually shading them in because I want them to be shaded, and because I'm trying to cover up that line that I made on the bottom of the castle. So right now I'm doing this. There were no alligators, no dragons, no sharks in the moat. Don't get too carried away with your imagination there. So I'm just going ahead here and I'm drawing some little bushes along the edge. I got my moat going on there. Things are looking good. So you can continue to work on to the left and to the right, adding your bushes along the bottom there. And then eventually you're going to fill in the rest of your water. And the next time we work on this, there's going to be another video coming next week where you're going to be adding even more texture and you'll be painting in colors. So you'll have lots of opportunities to be able to make some really cool watery colors there in your moat. So looking back at the castle that is inspiring us here, we actually need to get some really large buildings back behind there. And this is how it would have been with the castle, that you would see what was called the curtain wall, the wall that was out in front, to be the first initial thing that would keep people safe. And then behind that wall would be some of the larger buildings. Now, I think you learned in the video that I have attached to this that there would have been something called a keep. And the keep was a building where a lot of people would live. That's where there would be a chapel, kitchen, one of those big rooms with that big long table where everyone would be sitting. There would be bedrooms in there. So the keep was back there. And obviously, just like even now, you build something, you live in it for a while, and then someone gets a bright idea of building something else. It was the same way there with the castle. And so you kind of now get to start to imagine the buildings that you would want to add behind that front wall. So I'm going ahead and doing this. You can get creative with little windows, adding arrow loops. I'm actually doing kind of a large cross window here and kind of drawing in some bricks there. And I'm just going to be continuing to add more and more details. When you think about it, off in the back, you could have a little skinny tower coming up. You could have wider ones back there. You can look again on your idea sheet to look for other types of details that would have been included in there. So here I'm adding another one. Notice that it's not even necessarily the same height. They don't have to be. They would have different widths, different heights. Here I've decided to put a flag up there. Oh, that's cute. I decided to add a little flag right there. You can add as many flags as you like. Add as many windows as you like. Here I'm putting on some more arrow loops. That's always fun. More arrow loops on my wall. Like I said, can never have enough arrow loops. That was kind of meant to look like these things that they would have on the tower where they could drop things out. Some called them matriculations, where you would just drop things out of that little rounded part there. Ooh, look at me. I'm putting a little tower way in the back. That would have been the one time they just couldn't get high enough, and they were up on a step ladder up there, and they said, this is not high enough. Let's make a tiny tower that's super tall. So they went ahead and did that. Here I'm adding some more windows. So boys and girls, those of you at home, I'm telling you, with a big piece of paper, you could start going on and on and on and on and on, adding tower after tower after tower and more windows, more windows. Excuse me. And next week, we'll be adding on to that. But for this week, have fun drawing your castles. Bye-bye.